The baby's cry sliced through the silence like a knife through flesh. Sarah, barely 22, stood frozen, her heart pounding as she stared at the crib where her newborn son wailed, oblivious to the war brewing in the room. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Sarah had come back to her small hometown of Willow Creek, a place where secrets clung to the air like damp fog. She'd fled the city, her dreams of art school shattered by a scandal she refused to name. Her grandparents, Evelyn and Harold, had welcomed her back into their creaky old farmhouse with open arms, or so she thought. But their warmth came with a price. They wanted a legacy, a child to carry on the family name, and they weren't above playing dirty to get it. "Sarah, you're keeping that baby," Evelyn had declared months ago, her voice sharp as the winter wind. "It's God's will, and it's our family's future." Harold, quieter but no less resolute, had nodded, his weathered hands clasped tightly. They'd known Sarah was pregnant before she'd even admitted it to herself, their watchful eyes catching the subtle signs she'd tried to hide. They'd pushed, prodded, and guilted her into carrying the child to term, framing it as her duty, her redemption. But Sarah wasn't the naive girl they thought. She had a card to play a secret so explosive it could burn their perfect little world to ashes. The baby's father. They didn't know who he was, but Sarah did, and she'd sworn to take that truth to her grave unless they pushed her too far. The farmhouse was a pressure cooker, every creak of the floorboards a reminder of the tension simmering beneath the surface. Evelyn, with her silver hair pulled tight in a bun, ruled the house like a general. She'd raised Sarah after her parents died in a car crash when she was 6, and she wore that sacrifice like a badge, wielding it to bend Sarah to her will. Harold, a retired carpenter, was softer, his eyes carrying the weight of a man who'd seen too much but said too little. Together, they were an unbreakable front, or so they believed. But Sarah had learned to read their cracks, the fleeting glances they exchanged when they thought she wasn't looking. They were hiding something, too. That night, as the baby's cries grew louder, Sarah snapped. "I'm not doing this," she shouted, her voice raw. She stormed into the living room where Evelyn sat knitting, her needles clicking like a metronome. Harold was in his armchair, pretending to read the newspaper, but his hands shook. "You want this baby so bad? Fine, but you're going to pay for it." Evelyn's needles stopped. "What are you talking about, child?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Sarah leaned in, her voice low and venomous. "You know exactly what I mean. You want me to keep this baby, then you tell me the truth about Mom, about why she really died. Or I swear, I'll tell the whole damn town who the father is." The room went still. Harold's newspaper crumpled in his hands. Evelyn's face paled, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. The secret of Sarah's mother, Lily, was a wound they'd buried long ago, one they thought was safe. But Sarah had overheard enough whispered conversations as a child to know there was more to the story than a tragic car accident. And now, with a baby they'd forced her to keep, she held the upper hand. "Sarah, you don't know what you're asking," Harold said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Some things are better left alone. Better for who Sarah shot back. For you, for her." She pointed at Evelyn, who flinched as if struck. "You've controlled my life long enough. You want this baby to stay, then talk." The standoff stretched on, the baby's cries fading into a soft whimper. Evelyn stood, her knitting falling to the floor. "You're playing a dangerous game. Sarah, you think you know everything, but you don't. You want the truth. It'll ruin us all." "Then let it," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I've got nothing left to lose." The story of Lily, Sarah's mother, was a shadow that loomed over the family. The official story was simple. A rainy night, a slick road, a truck that didn't stop in time. But Sarah had always sensed the gaps. The way Evelyn's voice tightened when Lily's name came up. The way Harold would leave the room when old photos were mentioned. And the whispers Sarah had caught as a child, words like shame and cover-up that didn't fit the narrative of a grieving family. Evelyn took a deep breath. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. Your mother? She wasn't perfect. She made mistakes. Big ones. Sarah's heart raced. What mistakes? Harold stood, his voice breaking the silence. Enough. Evelyn. She doesn't need to know. But Evelyn shook her head. No. Harold. She's right. We've kept it too long. She turned to Sarah, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Your mother was pregnant when she died. Not with you. With another child. Sarah's breath caught. What? She was 19, Evelyn continued, her voice trembling. She got involved with the wrong man, a married man. When she found out she was pregnant, she was terrified. She came to us, begging for help. We told her to end it, to get rid of the baby, but she wouldn't listen. She said she loved him, that he'd leave his wife for her. We didn't believe her. We thought she was being naive. Harold's voice was barely audible. We were wrong. Sarah's mind spun. Who was he? Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me, Sarah shouted. You forced me to keep this baby, knowing what it did to her, knowing what it cost her. We thought we were protecting you, Evelyn said, her voice breaking. We thought if you kept the baby, it would fix things. Make up for what we did to Lily. Sarah laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Fix things. You think this fixes anything. You don't get to play God with my life because you screwed up hers. The truth unraveled like a thread pulled from a sweater. Lily's lover, the married man, was a prominent figure in Willow Creek, a pastor, no less. His name was Thomas Reed, a man whose sermons still echoed in the town's church every Sunday. When Lily refused to end the pregnancy, Evelyn and Harold had confronted him, demanding he take responsibility. But Thomas had denied everything, claiming Lily was delusional, a liar. The shame of it all had driven Lily to desperation. The night of the accident, she'd been driving to meet him, to beg him one last time to acknowledge their child. She never made it. Sarah listened, her anger giving way to a deep, aching grief. Her mother had been a girl, just like her, caught in a web of secrets and shame. And now, history was repeating itself. Sarah's own pregnancy hadn't been planned, but it hadn't been her choice to keep it either. Her grandparents had seen her as a second chance, a way to rewrite their mistakes, but they hadn't counted on her strength or her willingness to fight back. Who's the father? Sarah Harold asked, his voice gentle but urgent. You keep threatening to tell. Who is it? Sarah's eyes burned with tears, but she held her ground. You don't get to know. Not until I'm ready. But I promise you this, if you ever try to control me again, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows the truth about Thomas Reed. And about you. The threat hung in the air, heavy and final. Evelyn sank into her chair, her face crumpling. Harold reached for her hand, but she pulled away, lost in her own guilt. Sarah turned and walked back to the crib, lifting her son into her arms. His tiny weight grounded her, a reminder that she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. The days that followed were a delicate dance of silence and survival. Sarah stayed in the farmhouse, but the dynamic had shifted. Evelyn and Harold no longer issued commands. They moved around her like ghosts, haunted by their own past. Sarah, meanwhile, wrestled with her own choices. The father of her child was a man she'd met in the city, a fleeting connection that had left her with more than she'd bargained for. She hadn't told him about the baby, and she wasn't sure she ever would. But the power of that secret gave her leverage, a shield against her grandparents' control. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah sat on the porch, rocking her son gently. The air was thick with the scent of pine and regret. Evelyn joined her, hesitating before speaking. We were wrong. Sarah, about your mother, about you. We thought we were doing what was best, but we lost sight of what mattered. Sarah didn't look at her. What mattered was her and me, not your legacy. Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face. Can you ever forgive us? Sarah's gaze softened, but her voice was firm. I don't know, But I'm not staying here to fix your mistakes. I'm leaving. Evelyn, I'm taking my son, and I'm going to make a life for us. One where we're free. Evelyn's sob broke the quiet, but Sarah didn't waver. She'd spent too long under their thumb, too long carrying their burdens. It was time to write her own story. Weeks later, Sarah packed her bags and left Willow Creek, her son cradled in her arms. She didn't look back at the farmhouse, didn't linger on the memories of her mother or the secrets that had nearly destroyed her. She had her own path now, one she'd carve out with every ounce of strength she had. The town would talk. Of course, they always did. Some would call her reckless, others brave, but Sarah didn't care. She'd learned the cost of silence, the weight of secrets kept too long, and she'd vowed her son would grow up knowing the truth, whatever that truth might be. What do you think? Was Sarah right to threaten her grandparents with the truth? Or should she have kept the peace for the sake of family? Is it ever justified to hold secrets as leverage? Or does that only deepen the wounds? Share your thoughts on justice, truth, and the ties that bind us.